Susan Milner was here. Good morning. Welcome to the First Religious Society on this beautiful Palm Sunday morning. My name is Jessica Brown, and I'm serving as your worship associate, and I'm delighted to welcome you to church this morning. If you are joining us for the first time, a special welcome. We're so glad you're here. We have a very special service this morning, complete with a blessing of the palms, as you might have noticed, receiving palms as you came in the door. Reverend Rebecca is still home, recovering from COVID and awaiting a negative test result as she finishes her 10-day isolation. We're fortunate to have Reverend Jane Toohey in her absence, and also Brent Mitchell, who will be delivering the sermon today. And it's a special pleasure for me to introduce Brent, as he is my husband. Brent has worked in the field of nature conservation, specifically parks and protected areas, for his entire career. And he developed a taste for international work while serving for 5 years in the Peace Corps, which is how we met. A biologist by training, he is a vice chair of IUCN's World Commission on Protected Areas, and he's employed by QLF Atlantic Center for the Environment, which is based in Ipswich. In keeping with this month's theme of water, Brent's sermon is titled Life on Planet Water. I look forward to hearing it. I haven't heard it yet either. We come together as a church community, committed to love, peace, and justice. Our mission and our invitation to all of you is to come as you are, journey together in love, act with courage, and transform our world. If you're worshiping online today and would like to access this morning's order of service, please click on the link just below the live stream. I'd like to draw your attention to the many activities and events happening here at the church, and these are all listed in your order of service. A reminder that our annual auction will be on May 5th. That's a Friday. Please consider offering a contribution of art or services. We all love home-cooked meals, dog walking services, social gatherings, and fun adventures, so think about contributing one of those to the auction. You can learn more about how you can help if you visit the auction table after today's service. And finally, the parish board invites everyone to join in a conversation immediately following today's service to hear updates from the facilities, stewardship, and finance teams and ask your questions. This will be held here in the sanctuary and also online. Thank you. It is good to be together.
Good morning. As we enter into the season of Passover and Holy Week, and spring brings signs of renewal, you are invited into a period of reflection, atonement, and your own renewal. Nature is giving us hopeful harbingers of spring. Trees are budding. This is a time to contemplate what in each of us we might want to let go of, what no longer serves us. Do we have relationships that need repair? From what might we want to atone? And what in us is calling out for a new life, for renewal? What deeply held passions and interests may come to flower into new life if we allow them space and time? May we harvest the gifts of the dark in atonement and in letting go, and then, with the earth, turn towards the light. You are faithfully called to worship.
Please join in saying our chalice lighting words as Betsy lights the chalice. The words can be found in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Each week we light 2 candles of peace representing 2 places on earth we lift up and remember as a sacred encounter with our world. There are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we hold especially close in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, I will invite you to respond by saying peace, sol, shalom. Our first candle is lit for Nashville, Tennessee, where last Monday 6 people lost their lives in another mass shooting. We speak out again, calling for an end to senseless atrocity of these and similar deaths, and pray for peace to ultimately prevail, knowing that it will never remove the pain of loss to these families, friends, and communities that have been so devastated by these losses. To this we respond, peace, sol, shalom. Our second candle is lit for cities and towns and communities across our country who on Friday celebrated Transgender Day of Visibility. Created in 2010 by trans advocate Rachel Crandall, Transgender Day of Visibility celebrates the lives and contributions of trans people. It also raises awareness of and the need to end the poverty, discrimination, and violence that this community faces. To this we respond, peace, sol, shalom. Please rise now in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 105, in your teal hymnal. We are. choir. Please remain standing as we join our voices in our affirmation of faith, followed by the doxology. The words may be found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. You may be seated. We will now move into the blessing of the palms, written by Reverend Rebecca and sent with her love. Reverend Rebecca writes, Palm Sunday has always been a special day for me, both through the connections it has to my childhood faith and the meaning and examples that the teachings of Jesus have for me today. Palm Sunday is the story of common people honoring the life of Jesus and his teachings of nonviolence, radical inclusivity, and standing up to the wrongs of greed, violence, and power over any persons. People saw in this young rabbi a promise of a new world where women and outcasts were lifted up and respected for their gifts, where children were celebrated and protected, and where old laws and outdated systems that reputed anybody were reinterpreted. So too do we, as Unitarian Universalists, believe in these things: equity, justice, radical inclusion, and a world reformed and fitted for peace, safety, love of all people, the earth, and all sentient beings. In this spirit, we ask you to take your palm or even look into the palms of your hands as we affirm the following. There is a unison affirmation at the conclusion of these words, which I will invite you all to join in saying.
We gather this morning, just before the start of Passover, in the fullness of Palm Sunday and the preparation for Easter, holy days for people the world over.
We pause from our busy lives to recognize and reconcile, to the best of our abilities, the past, our own past, our family's past, and our shared pasts.
We remember people from all religions, all nations, and all ages. Yes, we are different, and yet there's so much we have to learn from one another.
We cannot learn from one another if our minds are closed. We know that every life is guaranteed to have pain, and yet we believe that there is never an excuse for pain that is knowingly inflicted upon another.
Not in the name of religion or authority, not in the name of anything.
So please join us now in the unison affirmation, which is printed in your order of service.
We look
Forward to a future that we must believe is possible, a future when race and religion and other divisions are no more a source of pain, no more a reason to hurt another or ourselves. We come together this Passover, Palm Sunday, and Sacred Spring Day to join together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Amen. Be. Please join us now in singing number 413 as we sing the children to Young Church.
Save Our Community is an essential ministry that supports the work of the church, both in Newburyport and beyond. Each week, 50% of the Sunday offering not designated as a pledge goes to a local community partner engaged in important efforts to transform our region. The April Shared Collection goes to support Merrimack Black and Brown Voices. This organization provides Black, Indigenous, and people of color across the Merrimack Valley of Massachusetts with a safe space to connect and share resources. It works with them to create systemic change to eliminate prejudice and discrimination in surrounding communities. Their activities range from social and cultural events to providing support for families in financial needs to helping bolster Black and Brown-owned businesses. Please answer the call to support this organization. In order to give online, please use the link in your order of service or below the live stream. You can also make a contribution by text, and of course you can always mail a check to the church as well. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's beautiful. Each week, we lift up joys and sorrows of our beloved community. Betsy Hazen will light the candles as I read what has been shared with Reverend Rebecca in advance of today's service. If you would like to share a joy or a sorrow to be read in the service, you can always send an email to betweenus@frsuu.org or write in the book in the vestibule. This morning, we light a candle of concern for Jennifer Wellman, who broke her right ankle on December 20th of last year and is still unable to walk or drive. We send her strength and healing. We light a candle of concern for Leanna Sorkar, who is recovering from a broken wrist and possibly a broken hip. Julie Menon shares the sad news that her mother, Margaret Forney, passed away on March 29th. She was an incredible woman, one of those people who impacts everyone they meet. 24 years ago, she convinced Julie's father to move to Amesbury so that she could be part of raising Julie's children and part of their lives. She was known for her warmth, her smile, her generosity, and her paper-thin sand-tart cookies. Julie also lost a beloved colleague, Andrew, on the same day that her mother died. Andrew was an incredibly creative, upbeat, and funny colleague, a devoted husband and father. Julie asks that we hold Andrew's husband, Ethan, and their son, Marty, in our prayers. Wendell Rizzo asks that we light a candle of sorrow for his mother, Mary Rizzo, who died on March 22nd at the age of 106. Had she lived to April, she would have turned 107. Mary was involved in musical circles in Greater Lawrence, and she performed as a vocalist and a church soloist. She sang with the FRS choir. She and her husband joined FRS in 1975. An active member of the Rye Garden Club and Friends of the Rye Library, she is survived by her son Wendell, his wife Julie, 2 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. And Wendell assured me that she will be missed not just by her family, but by friends from many, many generations, from multiple generations. And finally, Justin and I share a candle of joy, because we heard just before this service that Reverend Rebecca has tested twice negatively. And she is on the mend. She will be seeing a doctor this afternoon and taking a PCR test, but we're hoping that she will be returning soon and give herself time to fully recover. All right, thank you. And just in time, this Sunday we had originally planned to have a baby blessing. Many of you will remember our dear ministerial intern last year, David Livingston. David, his wife Rennie, and the newest member of their family, Thomas. And we will be meeting Thomas again because there will be a baby dedication at a later date when Reverend Rebecca returns. So welcome, we're delighted to have you back, David. It's so good to see Rennie and meet baby Thomas. Our pastoral prayer today, I think baby Thomas put us in the mindset of thinking about parenting. So our pastoral prayer today is Gahil Gibran's poem on parenting from the prophet. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but are not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. As living arrows are sent forth, the archer sees the mark in the path of the infinite. He bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Lend yourself to bending in the archer's hand. Be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrows that fly, so he loves the bow that is stable. Please rise in body and spirit and join us in the responsive reading, number 717, in your gray hymnal, New Life Comes to Us. And in this hymn, I will read the minister's line, and your responses are in light gray following. New life comes to us as a gift. New life appeals to us. New life grows. And new life bears untold promise. Each new life has a story to tell, and we shall listen. Each new life goes forth from us, playing the child's sovereign claim on whole realms of being we have called our own. God of grace, may they be blessed, whatever the pathways they follow, whatever the life they claim as their own.
Good morning. I to the world am like a drop of water that in the ocean seeks another drop, who falling there to find his fellow forth, unseen, inquisitive, confounds himself. So I to find a mother and a brother, in quest of them, unhappy, lose myself. In Shakespeare's The Comedy of the Errors, water is a simile in a personal search for identity. And why not? We are, after all, mostly water. Our bodies are 55 to 60% water on average. And our planet is mostly water. While the sphere of Earth is rock, the part we experience directly, the surface, is over 70% water. Liquid water is what makes our planet unique, at least as far as we know. Other planets have ice, but scientists are still studying a few distant planets that might have liquid water on the surface and an atmosphere to support life. But for now, we are the only planet water. When Reverend Rebecca asked me about a week ago to speak today, she could not have known that I was at the very time writing about water. Specifically, water at the confluence of two rivers in Tajikistan on the border with Afghanistan. This place supports a particular kind of flooded forest unique to Central Asia that has almost disappeared. The rivers of Tiger Gorge join to form the Amu Darya, the largest river in Central Asia that flows to the Aral Sea. Or rather, it used to flow to the Aral Sea. Even worse than our own Colorado River, which is reduced to a mere trickle by the time it reaches the Pacific Ocean. The Amu Darya has so much water diverted from it by people along its length that it no longer even reaches the Aral Sea. It is a river to nowhere. I was drafting an official recommendation to UNESCO for the flooded forest to become a World Heritage Site, precisely because they are now so rare, which is not to say that they are fully natural. While the immediate area is strictly protected, as the name suggests, the ecology of the flooded forests depend on periodic floods. The floods no longer come, as there are 8 dams upstream, some among the largest in the world. The floods have to be simulated artificially and approximately. The truly natural forests may disappear, just as have the Caspian tigers for which the place is named. And what of the Aral Sea? First, it is really an endorheic lake, which means that it has no outlet. It was once the 4th largest lake in the world, but in my lifetime, it has all but disappeared and has been added to a little-known but sadly growing chronicle of environmental and cultural disasters, the UNESCO Memory of the World. Our theme for the month of April is water. My strongest association with religious tradition and water is baptism. I was raised Baptist, or more accurately, every Sunday I was sent off to the Emmanuel Baptist Church in my hometown in central Illinois. Baptism was central to that church, quite literally. In contrast to the windows you see behind me, we had a water tank. And not just for baptisms, it was there all the time. The front bit was plexiglass, behind which was a generous depiction of the River Jordan that was more romantically idealized tropical Eden than Middle Eastern ecotone. Trying to understand both scripture and this local stage set, in my adolescence I imagined the Jordan River as a verdant Valhalla for true believers. Years later, while escaping the Second Intifada via drive from Jerusalem to Amman, I crossed the Jordan River on a small bridge. I could have easily jumped across what was little more than a ditch. Any blind faith in the scriptures that I had was, to say the least, shaken. I thought to myself, preacher, if you're going to wash away my sins, you're going to need a lot more water. Dihydrogen oxide has amazing physical properties. Pure water is tasteless and odorless, and a universal solvent. It's the only common substance to exist as a gas, solid, and liquid on the Earth's surface. Water is one of only a few liquids that exhibit negative thermal expansion. Most everything else shrinks linearly when it cools, but water actually expands as it nears its freezing point. That's why a full jug of water in the freezer will blow its top, and why Shackleton's ship, the Endeavour, was crushed by expanding sea ice in Antarctica. This isn't just trivia. If ice did not expand at freezing, that is, become less dense and therefore float, water bodies would freeze from the bottom up, and all life would be killed. Because of these properties, water, of course, has many uses. Perhaps most significant, water is the main component in wine. Sure, the grapes are important, but without the water, they're just raisins. Life on Earth began in water. While terrestrial single-celled animals existed 1 billion years ago, multicellular animals from the sea came to live on land only 423 million years ago. Only. And each of us began in water, our lives. Amniotic fluid is 98% water. We did not breathe air, of course, until parturition. One of my favorite phrases from biology is ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. It means that an individual's early development, in our case as an embryo, repeats the evolutionary history of the species. Much of the original theory is defunct. Our embryos don't really recapitulate our evolution, but embryos do go through stages where they resemble other animals, to put it simply. For example, when we were all embryos, we had slits in our neck that resembled gills. That didn't make us fish, and we didn't breathe with them, but it does mean that we share some common DNA with water breathers. And what of the other end of life? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and all that. Being nearly 2/3 water, most of our bodies will find its way back to the atmosphere, and from there to the sea. Thus, the hydrological cycle truly is the cycle of life. While we might visit the dust of the departed in a cemetery or in an urn, we would see more of them at the sea. You might consider that the next time you're at the seashore. 2 weeks ago, the United Nations convened the first major UN conference on water in 46 years. It was held in New York, but in an odd coincidence, was co-hosted by Tajikistan. Its focus was on Sustainable Development Goal number 6, to ensure access to water and sanitation for all. The UN reports that 26% of the world's population, about 2 billion people, do not have access to safe drinking water, and 3.6 billion lack access to safe sanitation. Water scarcity is expected to worsen. You won't be surprised that access to clean water and sanitation has an equity dimension. The poor and marginalized are also most likely to lose out on quantity and quality of water. The poisoning in Flint, Michigan, about a decade ago, where the majority of the population is African American and 45% of the residents live below the poverty line, would have never happened in more upper and middle class Ann Arbor or Lansing. Tribes along the Colorado River are fighting for their rights for water, while other interests run the game. These are just a few examples. One might look at this and conclude that the world is running out of water, but that is not accurate. The UN Water Conference, the Colorado River, and other debates are about supplies of fresh water. Fresh water is only part of the hydrological cycle, and fortunately, the cycle is a closed system. Our planet does not lose water, the atmosphere does not leak. It does a perfect job of retaining water because the upper atmosphere is so cold that any water vapor that reaches it freezes and falls back to Earth. If the atmosphere did leak, we Homo sapiens would have caused our own extinction long ago. Like food security and wealth inequities, the problem in water is not its overall quantity, but its distribution. By diverting water, using too much of it, changing the climate, and other sins, we are disrupting the cycle and thus disrupting distribution. Sure, there have always been places that are drier or wetter. Because of global climate patterns, that's natural. What's unnatural is making those dry places green or draining those areas that are wet. Local decisions for immediate gain are disrupting the cycles in ways that we can't fully predict, but we are starting to see the consequences and quite vividly. My own work has recently involved freshwater more than anticipated. In December, nations of the world agreed to an ambitious plan to reverse the global decline of biodiversity. December was the so-called Paris moment for biodiversity. I'm quite involved in the target so-called 30-30 to protect 30% of lands and waters by 2030, developing technical guidance to countries on how to do that. Freshwater was not called out specifically until very late in the negotiations, so my team and I are now busy making adjustments to ensure that it's properly considered by governments. By the way, if you're ever considering getting involved in multilateral agreements, with all the complicated politics and haggling over tortured language, my advice to you is run away. Getting to the biodiversity agreement required a lot of persistence by many people over many years. Ovid gives us a great lesson on this in his phrase, "Gutta cavat lapidem." A drop of water hollows a stone. Water does this not by force, but by falling often. It teaches us that to accomplish difficult things, we must be persistent, little by little, bit by bit, and drop by drop. As I approach the end of my remarks, and in honor of our friend Merrill Maleska Wilbur, I want to work in a verse by Richard Wilbur from his poem, Water Walkers. We have heard of the undimmed air, of the true earth above us, and how here, shut in our sea-like atmosphere, we grope like muddled fish. We do indeed muddle and grope, but I don't agree that there is another true earth above us. We must keep the air undimmed here and now, and we must not take water for granted. Benjamin Franklin quipped that when the well is dry, we know the value of water. We might say the same of life. I confess that I am guilty of over-focusing on life's challenges, the frustrations and injustices, the deadlines and balance sheets, the aches and pains, both physical and emotional. Too seldom do I stop to fully appreciate and celebrate what a rich life I have here between the Merrimack and Parker rivers. With a wonderful family and a most amazing wife, not to mention our 2 cats. When the well is dry, we know the value of water. May you always perceive your well to be full. May you always know the value of life. May your cup runneth over with love.
Thank you, Brent. It's wonderful. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing.
Every blessing.
Please remain standing and join in saying our unison benediction as Jessica extinguishes the candles. The words can be found in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. As we prepare to leave this sanctuary, I offer you a final blessing. Some may leave and start planning for Holy Week and for Easter. Others may start preparations for Passover. I imagine that all of us are happily anticipating the arrival of spring. May the new season bring each of you hope and a sense of renewal as we collectively enjoy the lengthening and the warming of days and the abundant signs of new life which are all around us. Go now in peace and return in great joy.